And we are live. Well, I'm live anyway. Good evening. Let's say hello to some people who are in our chat room tonight. And first and foremost, we are going to say hello to Ben Brady and 3D Printing Viking. Then we've got Robert Marvin. We've got our good friend Jerry Knapp from 3D Printing and Painting, who always shares our live streams. So I want to really thank him. He shares those on his Facebook page. And I did say Rex Waldy. There's Captain Lecklin and Sean Gould. And it's just me tonight, guys. So I'm going to do my best to answer the questions that I've got here. My wife is over on her computer, and she is going to be giving us your chat tonight. We've got One Raz, we've got Ultracious, we've got the Park 88, Michael Johnson, Matt Johnson, 3D Medic Vince, Ryan Bagwell, Corey Mack. Wow, we got a whole full room tonight. Well, excellent. I like seeing that. If you guys are getting good picture and good audio, please let me know by giving me a thumbs up in the chat tonight. And we're going to get underway here in just about a minute. Captain Lecklin, The Fan. Anybody remember that movie, The Fan? It was a very bizarre movie. Hi, Thomas. Hey, Corey. David Sell, hello. Chuck Brett.
He's a newbie.
Newbie? Well, welcome. Thumbs up to you, my friend. So Chuck says we got a thumbs up. 3D Printing Llama is in the house. We got Rob D. Joseph Jolly from Orlando, Florida. Yeah, wow. So everybody's got good audio. Everybody's got good video. Captain Lecklin says you fixed my Ender 3 Pro. I do remember very much, sir, my friend. So here, we're going to run the intro, and let me just grab the right mouse here, and we will get things underway. Hey, welcome to the first layer. This is Ask for Help, our weekly live stream. Brian is not with me tonight. He is off in Lake Louise celebrating Christmas, of all things. His company has a Christmas party late or early in the year to compensate for not having one in December, I guess. So we wish him and Jess all the best while they're out there, and safe travels back. They'll be back by tomorrow. They're staying there tonight, but they're not staying there tomorrow. They're coming home tomorrow. So, and then Brian will be back with us next Saturday. So, if you're wondering, yes, I have a printer back here printing. This is my Cr-10, and it is printing something for an upcoming episode. So, you guys are going to see that on Wednesday. I can't tell you too much about it. Tim McCoy, what are you doing in Toronto? Tim McCoy's supposed to be here in Calgary. Wow. There's Gerald Wampler. I hope I said that. First time watching. Welcome. Welcome. Yeah, we got a number of questions here tonight. My wife is rocking out. She's doing some dancing over there. I don't know what.
Music in my one ear.
Oh, she's got music in her one ear, she tells me. Okay, so she's rocking out over there. She's going to be relaying some of the chats in case I missed them tonight for your questions. We did get some good questions this week, so I'm quite happy about that. And I have to apologize because on last week's show, I mentioned somebody's email, and I do apologize for that. Unfortunately, when we do live streams, it's really hard to go back and take that out. So again, I do apologize. Hey, there's Paul Cumber. Welcome, Paul. Okay, so what is Ask for Help? Well, Ask for Help is our weekly live stream show. If you are new here, this is where you can ask questions. And let me just get up that little graphic for you. So you can go ahead and ask questions over here. You can see the graphic next to me, and there's an email there where you can submit your questions right after tonight's show. I have a number of questions. You can also ask questions in the chat as well. If I don't get to them, please don't be offended. The questions that come in through email on questions at questions@thefirstlayer.com, those are the ones we take priority on first. But Chuck Bretz has one question when I get time. So we'll just get it out of the way right now, Chuck. I just got the Cutie X Maker and love it, but I'm looking to get a large volume as well. I'm looking at the Alpha U20 Plus. Any thoughts? Thank you in advance. The U20 Plus I'm not familiar with. I'm assuming that that is very similar to a CR10. If you can get something that has a much bigger build volume, I'm all for that. Just remember, the bigger you go, the more space it's going to take. And it does draw a little bit more electricity, but not a whole lot. I have found in my own testing that 3D printers don't draw any more electricity than your standard computer in your house. So they actually draw less electricity than your refrigerator. So there you go. So ask for help. Questions@thefirstlayer.com. That's where you can submit your questions every week. And we do go through your questions, and I do my best to try and answer them as best I can. 3D printing llama. I need help. It's 3D printed related help. I'm addicted. LOL. Well, there you go. Geraldine Ham is my wife, for anybody that is wondering who that is in our chat tonight. She's going to be monitoring things for us. Jake from State Farm. Hello, sir. And Snapshot FPV. Let's get to our first questions from Daryl Ritz. He says, hi, guys. Recently purchased the Big Tree SKR version 1.4 with the TMC 2209 stepper drivers, version 1.2, and a Big Tree SKR Mini E3 32-bit controller board integrated with the 2209 UART for my CR-10S. As I understand from BQ, the SKR Mini board is only for the Ender 3. I purchased that one first. I wanted the flexibility to change drivers, so I got the 1.4 board. I was watching the show Saturday, and you were talking about the E3 working with both CR10 or with the CR-10S. Is that correct? Yes, that absolutely is correct. It does fit into the existing box. You're just going to have to manipulate the firmware so that it is more CR10 based. So you'll have to, of course, change the size of the bed. You're going to have to change the build volume, that sort of thing. Most other things are pretty much going to be the same, but yeah, you are going to have to make some minor changes, but it will work. BQ hasn't tested it, and they don't have specific firmware for the CR-10S. However, if you download the firmware from Creality's website, you can do the conversion over back and forth. Just have them open in two windows, and you just move over what you need to move over, and that should be fine. So here's kind of an interesting question. So if you need to lower my electricity bill, I shouldn't unplug the refrigerator. Got it. Yeah, don't unplug your refrigerator.
I should.
Oh, you should? Well, don't unplug the refrigerator. Unplug your computer first. But don't unplug your printer, because you're probably printing something on that, and that would just ruin things, and it would just be all kinds of nonsense. That's actually kind of cool. From Sean. Yeah, the winter, we got snow again last night, which was really bizarre, and we woke up this morning, our car was covered in snow. It was. I had to go and take it all off. My wife's complaining that I'm being a big baby now. So, all right, let's get to another question. So, we'll go back to Dale's, just to kind of reiterate. The Mini, the Dip and the Mini can both be used in the majority of machines across the Creality spectrum. I've put them in the 5s, the Ender 5s, the Ender 5 Plus. I have put them into a CR10, so I know that they fit and I know that they work. I have not written firmware for it yet. I will be doing all kinds of firmware later on in the year, and those will all be up on our Facebook page. or they will start to appear over on our website, which my wife is working diligently on to try and get out for us. So we're
Working on it right now.
she's working on it right now as we speak.
I'm doing a twofer.
Oh, she's doing a
I'm a
twofer.
woman, I can multitask.
Hey, there's Hobby Naki. Hello, sir. All right, so next question comes from Dominic. He says, install the new silent board main board. Fan does not start until print cooling fan starts. I believe the stepper drivers get hotter than original. Is that a concern, or should I rewire the fan to work all the time? Also, the main board fan originally changes with the part cooling fan setting. Should I be concerned? If you're using the silent board from Creality, because you don't really say which silent board you're using.
Super chat.
Travis, thank you very much for the super chat. My wife just over in the corner, she's like, super chat. Thank you very much, Travis. Here's a high five and a fist bump for you. Now I'm just totally
I'm
lost.
sorry. Sorry, I'll wait next time till after the question.
So what we've got going on here, I think if you're dealing with the Creality silent board, the way that the fans work are a little different than previous boards. So the top two ports, I believe, I don't have a board in front of me, but I believe the top two ports are for continuously on, and the bottom port below those two ports, the fan port, is for your part cooling. So that should only come on when you get to the second layer of your print. So check that out. Just make sure that I believe I'm right on that. If not, I will post something next week. Ben saying, you go, Jerry. So I'll post something next week on that just to make sure, because if you are using that board, the fans are a little different. Same thing with the SKR boards. The fans are in a little different location, so you may want to check that out. So how can you get a hold of us? Well, it's pretty easy. You can find us on Facebook over at our group on the first layer. I just want to kind of reiterate this. You can find us on Instagram. Now, we don't do a lot on Instagram, but we're trying to do a lot more on Instagram. And then, of course, you can follow me on Twitter at Cleveland_IM. And then, of course, right here on YouTube at the first layer. And we do appreciate those that are new. Go ahead, hit that subscribe button, ding that little bell so you get notified every time that we do a brand new episode. Also, you can do a few other things if you want. If you want to show your support, of course, you can use the super chat, just like Travis did. Or you can go ahead and pick up one of our fine t-shirts. Not the one I'm wearing tonight, because this is from Maker Faire Calgary. But you can go ahead, nope, this side. I got to remember it's this side. You can go ahead over to our Teespring store and pick up one of our t-shirts or our hoodies, or we don't have ball caps yet, but we are working on them. Hey, there's Michael Castle. Hello, Michael. So let's go back to this shot because it's just easier to do. So there you go. Again, thank you to Travis. So when you're putting new boards into your machine, you want to really, first of all, make sure that you have the right board for your machine. Again, I do know from experience that the mini SKR E3 and the E3 dip from SKR will both mount into the Cr-10 S case. So and all the ports line up, it looks just great. 3D Print Vikings has just followed you on Instagram. Thank you very much. So let's go off to another question here, because nobody's got real questions here over in our chat this evening. So we're going to go, here's one from Joseph Jolly. He says, good evening, Richard and your team. I definitely enjoy your weekly show. Thank you very much. My question is, there are written instructions to update the firmware on the main board and on the display. I have reviewed several videos on YouTube. Most of them are too fast to jump around to different websites. Any help would be appreciated. The firmware that I am using is 1.60.3. Thank you. Joseph, it's actually pretty easy to do. Depending on, again, it depends on the board that you're using and on what machine you're using. I'm going to assume, Joe, that you have a Creality machine because that is Creality's firmware number, 1.60.3. Basically, if you're on an Ender 3, you do have to put a bootloader on the board. It's not that difficult to do. It was okay. It's okay to do. It's a little complicated if you've never done it before. You will need an Arduino or something to do that programming with. I am going to be doing another video on that very soon as part of our teaching this year. We're also working on a masterclass course for all of you guys out there, and there will be some nice discounts for our existing audience when we launch that course. And it's going to be a masterclass taking you right through the setup that you have for your 3D printer, and it'll apply mostly to FDM printers, not so much to Delta, but more of the Cartesian style. We have a super chat from Chuck. Thank you very much, Chuck. Thank you very much. Joseph Jolly says he has a Cr-10 Pro. So, Joe, you do not need a bootloader on that. All you have to do is load up Arduino, load up the firmware that you've got from Creality, and make sure that you get the source code. Don't get the hex file. Get the actual source code, which is available there. And if you do that, you can just take that USB cable, connect it to your computer, connect it to your printer, and just go ahead. Make sure that you've got the proper board selected, and make sure that you've got the proper COM port selected so that there is communication between the printer and between your computer. And then just go ahead and upload that right to your printer, and that should be pretty easy. Dave Tallman, me too. Hello, Dave Tallman. So that should be pretty easy. If you're having any more problems, Joe, please reach out to me either through email or on YouTube, or pardon me, our Facebook group, through the messaging on Facebook, and I can kind of probably walk you through it and show you exactly what to do. So Bill McDonald, I love Bill McDonald's questions because they're always in three. They always come in three parts, so I really love them. So first and foremost, he says, so there are numbers of parts and such you can put on your 3D printer to upgrade it. I recently got a few things as gifts, and I'm trying to get more information about them to see if it's worth my time installing them. I have an Ender 3 with an aluminum extruder and SKR Mini 1.2 BL Touch. First is the most questionable item. It's the CC Tree extruder back support plate with 4 pieces on Amazon. I did take a look at this. I don't think it's necessary, to be perfectly honest with you. I'm going to actually highlight that again and just kind of open it up here. Let's see if I can explore this on Amazon. There it is. I don't think this is really, no, this is not necessary at all. It's adding another wheel. That's not a big deal. If you tighten the eccentric spacer that is at the bottom side of your extruder mounting, or pardon me, your hot end mounting plate, and make sure that there's no play in there, you'll have no problem. This to me is just a gimmick. Having those 4 wheels is just a gimmick. You've got more that you've got to do. I would not do it personally, but that's just me. So his next question, we're going to close the results there.
You got a question up on your page, on your form.
Oh, let's go to the question. Snapshot FPV. I'm a practical printer. I print many parts for my quadcopters and planes, very few overhangs, but trying to get good print out of Baby Yoda. Supports are proving near impossible to get rid of. Why? Well, it's a good thing that you ask that, because coming up on Wednesday is my demystifying supports in Cura video. That'll be released on Wednesday, and I will kind of give you an idea of what I'm doing there. I'm going to do traditional supports. I'm going to show you how to use that support plugin we did on last week's episode. We are also going to be using tree supports. If you use tree supports, you're going to get a lot less scarring. It's going to be a lot easier to remove on the Baby Yoda. I've used tree supports on many different projects, and I find that tree supports work very well. So that's something that you might want to try out for Baby Yoda. And why are they impossible to get off? Because there's not enough space between where the support ends and where the model begins. And again, I'm going to go into more in-depth information on this on Wednesday. But what happens is when it's too close, that hot material that's being laid down over top of that support is staying there. So if you've got a little bit more space between it, that should solve some of your problems. But again, with Baby Yoda, I think the tree supports are much better to use. If you're using an infill that is going to be like gyroid, I'm going to talk about infills in a whole separate episode, but infill is something that you may want to take a look at as well. It'll strengthen up some of those smaller parts. All right, so let's get on to the next question. 2 seems like a decent BMG clone, worth my time, Leeway BMG extruder clone on Amazon. I'm not a huge fan of clones, and I talked about this last week on the show. We talked a little bit about clones last week. Sorry, I'm a little parched. And no, there's no libation in here tonight. Clones are really not worth your time because they will give out on you over a period of time. They're not done to the same tolerances that the genuine article is done. And this is a big problem out of China right now, is that everybody's jumping on the bandwagon to make a clone. And I saw a great video today from one of the guys that I have spent a lot of time learning my photography craft from. His name is Gary Fong. Anybody that's into photography might know the name Gary Fong. Today he was comparing his original light sphere, or what we used to call the Fong Dong, which is a plastic shroud that goes over your flash that can give you 360 degrees of light when you're taking pictures. So it lights up a room much better. You can actually do very professional results with this item. And then he compared it to one that was a Chinese knockoff. The packaging was almost identical. It had his name all over it, his website, everything. It's being sold on Amazon, but it wasn't exactly his. It was made out of a different material. It wasn't quite as opaque. It wasn't quite as soft. It didn't fit well on top of a flash. And it's the same thing that, like with BMG and some of the other big name companies that are putting out really good parts, Microswiss, E3D. These guys put out great parts, but everybody and their dog are trying to copy them. So at the end of the day, what happens is that you end up with a product that you may not be able to use over a long period of time. On this printer that's in the background today, that has an original BMG extruder on it for the Cr-10, and it works beautifully. I can run all kinds of great material through that, including flexibles, down through the Bowden tube, and I have no problems. And as a matter of fact, I'm going to be printing some flexible stuff here coming up in the next couple of weeks. So it may be good in the interim, but over the long term, I don't think it is. And you know, it's like guys who buy $12 hot ends off of Amazon that are supposed to be E3Ds. They're not. So let's have a look here and see what we've got going on.
How's your Superman painting coming along?
A Superman painting is coming along very slowly. Who is that from? Paul Cumber. Coming along very slowly, Paul. As in right now, not at all. I could go grab him and show you what he looks like, but I'm not satisfied. I just threw some paint on him just to kind of block things out a little bit, so I'm not quite there yet. Hey, there's HVAC A to Z. Welcome, Dave Tellman. Gary Strong from Vegas. Welcome, welcome.
So there's also a chat on here about using Ideal Maker for supports.
Idea Maker is certainly a way to go, but I am going to demystify supports for you coming up on Wednesday's show. So you make sure if you're having problems with your supports that you watch that episode, because it is going to be very informative. It's only going to be about 25 minutes long, but there's a lot of information packed into that 25 minutes because we're covering a lot. Let's see. Some people using it as direct drop-in in component, and some that adjust the maximum current. Okay, whoa. Wondering if you have any experience using 12-volt heated bed with a 24-volt system. I've read that it can work. Yeah, Sean, you can do that. You are going to need a buck converter so that you can take that 24 volts down to 12 volts for the bed. To me, it doesn't make any sense. The whole system should be 24 volts, not just part of the system. If you've got something that is partially good, then I would definitely be skeptical about that. I would turn around and make sure you put a 24 volt bed on it. It won't cost you that much. Depending on the size of the printer, it shouldn't cost you that much. Hey, there's Rasmus. Good evening. There are some beds that are dual voltage as well. Yep, that's true. People saying Idea Maker is awesome. Yeah, Tim McCoy, you've got it right. Buy one OEM part or several clones. And I equate it to the dollar store. I look at it like going to the dollar store. If you go to the dollar store and you buy a phone case, okay? You buy a phone case at the dollar store, and then you buy one from a reputable company. They may look identical, but I guarantee you the one from the dollar store is not going to fit right. It's going to fall apart in a short period of time. It may not be done to the same tolerances as a name brand case. Same thing with phones. I mean, you either buy a Samsung or a Samsung, which looks like a Samsung, right? So, Chris Travis is going to try out my Ender 3. It has the M600 support in the TH3 unified firmware. Chris, did you go ahead and put in the easy board and using TH3D's firmware? I'd be interested to hear how that comes out. As some people are talking about color changes, we're going to talk about color changes in an upcoming episode as well.
Extreme Z banding.
Extreme Z banding. Okay.
Hobby Howie.
Hobby Naki or Hobby Howie?
Hobby Howie.
Hobby Howie. Extreme Z banding artillery X1 version 4 with dual Z with belt. Where would you start to correct? First and foremost, I'd make sure that those two Z rods are straight when they're going up and down. And you can measure this. And how you can measure this is bring the X gantry all the way to the bottom, take a measurement at the top. Then bring that all the way to the top and take another measurement at the top and see if there's any movement out from the back piece of the extrusion. And also turn it around so that you're looking at it from the back so you can see if it's doing this back and forth when it's going up. If it is, then there's something wrong with your Z couplers, and I would change out those Z couplers. If there's no problem there, there might be some vibration in the frame. If there's vibration in the frame, then I would stiffen up that frame. And that would be a way to take care of that problem. Now, Snapshot FPV, count on the first layer for supports. I like that, big time S's.
Omega X says, thanks for the advice a couple of weeks back on my A110M Cura profile question. Got a great starting point for further tweaking.
Excellent. Omega X9400, I'm glad that it worked out for you. Saying that we gave him some advice on the A10M. And if it's working out for you, excellent. Yeah, it's going to take a little bit of tweaking. Tweaking is one of those things that can be, it's just like your car, right? You're always going to be fiddling with your car to just tune it just right so that it sounds great, it runs great. And your printer is no different. You're going to tune it so that you've got the speed dialed in, you've got the jerk dialed in, you've got the travel dialed in, you've got your temperatures dialed in for your materials. Once you've done that, you can pretty much say you're there. But over time, you know, there is maintenance that has to be done, and that maintenance can throw things out a little bit. So you may want to just retune it. If you don't use a buck converter on a, oh, Ben Brady's saying, telling somebody that you don't use a buck converter on a PWM MOSFET. No, you don't. Dollar store analogy is great, he says. Alterations. If you're switching voltage for your bed, just go 110 volt and use a solid state relay. Yes, I agree with that. More of a question of reusing an old bed in case I need to in the event of a problem with the current. No puns intended. 24 volt heated bed. Sean, again, I would say to you, if you got to switch one out, just buy another 24 volt bed. Don't try and put a 12 volt bed on there because you will burn it out if it's not if you don't have the proper things to do. Chuck Brett is saying that with this Kitty X maker, can I use Cura? I tried to use Cura and it doesn't list my printer for setup. Yes, you can certainly use Cura. Find a printer in there that is very close, and you should be able to find in there, you know what? I'm going to quickly look. Let me just pull up Cura here. I'm going to quickly look for you. I don't think I've got Cura on this computer right here. Maybe I do. I do have Cura right here. Okay, let me pull up Cura right here. Cura 4.4. So what you want to do is when you are, if there's no profile for your printer in Cura, don't panic because you can build your own profile based on another profile. And I've done that several times and it's worked out great. FlashForge may have their FlashForge Creator or Creator Pro in there. You can use that as a basis. I know the Kitty Tech is pretty close to the FlashForge Creator Pro. And then use that and just adjust the sizes and things like that. That might be, yeah, it's a FlashForge clone. That's what I thought. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that it's a FlashForge clone. So you can use the FlashForge directly, the FlashForge profile directly, or you can make some changes to it if you so choose. I'm just going to quickly go into Manage Printers here and just see if they've got the FlashForge in there. It's a non, so we're going to go to, yeah, there's Folger Tech. They do not have FlashForge in here. But I believe Folger Tech has a similar one. No, maybe not. G-Create, no. JG Aurora, I believe, has one that's very similar to that. So what you'll want to do, you can start with that, or you can go right up to the top here where it says Custom, just underneath the Ultimaker stuff. If you hit Custom, you can just go Custom FFF Printer and just fill in the sizes of your build volume. Let it know that you've got 2 extruders and so on, and it will create the start and the end G code, and then you'll just modify them a little bit to suit your needs. So I hope that helped you.
Have you connected Duet 2 to a 24 volt Ender 3 Pro, Joe Boxer? Is there a voltage issue?
No, because the board is...
Say the question, 'cause we can't hear.
Okay, Joe Boxer says, how do you connect a Duet 2.0 to a 24 volt Ender 3 Pro? Is there a voltage issue? As far as I know, there is not. The Duets will use 24 volts. You should be able to connect it right up and away you go. Now, let's get back to the last question here. This one again is from Bill McDonald, the last one from him. Third, are these linear rails for my X gantry, the MG12 300s? miniature linear rail guides, hopefully you have time to take a look and bring up some photos. No, sorry, I didn't get a chance to do photos this week. But do you really need linear rails on an Ender 3? No, you don't. Can you do it? Yes, you can. The Ender 3 is so small though that you will benefit along the X gantry because as it goes up the Z, it'll stay a lot straighter than just the wheels, keeping it aligned. Because remember that there's only one Z screw there, so that one Z screw is still going to move things up. But those blocks, as soon as they get off kilter, they'll stick. So you'll know that you're right in the money if you've got that thing going well. So Trevor Rickard here, I want to keep going here. We're at 7:30. Trevor Rickard, hey, have a quick question for you. Trevor, I'm having vertical line problems again. I originally thought it was a Z wobble. I've replaced my couplers. I've double checked everything to make sure everything is tight. I have a brace for the Z axis. I've put concrete underneath my Cr-10 S. I have noticed in the X axis does a little bit of noise coming off of it. Don't know what will be causing that. Now that can be caused by a loose belt, a motor that may be going, slipping of the gear. How old is your Cr-10S would be another good question, because like this one that I've got behind me, it is fairly old. Like I think this is first generation Cr-10S. So I'm able to add in stepper dampeners and remove the gears and that sort of thing. You may not have that ability. So if you don't have that ability, then I would definitely check to make sure that the motor is okay. Make sure that that belt is not too tight and it's not too loose. And how you'll know this is what I do is I take the largest Allen key that came with the printer and I stick it down between that idler wheel and the end of that X-axis extrusion. I'll stick that down there, first loosening the two bolts, just to get the proper spacing. I found that that is the perfect spacing. It's not too tight, it's not too loose, it's just perfect. I never seem to get Z-wobble in any of my prints. So the other thing that could be throwing things off is make sure that your X gantry is level on both sides. If you're not sure if it is, get a couple of machinist blocks or two pieces of plywood or 2x4 that are exactly the same height. Stick them underneath just the extrusion, not underneath the plates, and bring it down until it evens out on both sides. And then you'll know that the X gantry is square to the rest of the frame. Okay? Okay, what else we got here? BL Touch or Duet is well documented. Yeah, the BL Touch and the Duet. Wayne Wenthen, I hope I got that right, are both very well documented. Yes, absolutely.
How can you tell if your nozzle is jammed?
Nothing will be coming out.
Paul Cumber.
Paul, how can you tell if your nozzle's jammed? When it printing. Let me tell you, first you'll notice that your extruder is clicking. Okay, so the extruder on the Cr-10 will start to skip, so you'll get a big clunk, and you'll actually see the gear kick back a little bit. And when that happens, it means that the material is not being pushed through the nozzle. So chances are you have a clog. You may not have enough, or you may have too much tension on your extruder. But I would say first and foremost that that's a clog. If you're getting extreme under extrusion, you may have a clog. If you're not getting anything coming out at all, you definitely have a clog. How can you clear clogs in a Cr-10 stock? Take it off and replace it. They are just a pain in the butt, because what happens with them is that Bowden tube that goes into the hot end, that goes all the way down to the actual block, and it meets up with the nozzle. And so you got to consider you're heating that thing at 210, 220. Now, Teflon tubes, the Bowden tubes, the white ones, are not supposed to break down till about 240. But it's been my experience over the last few years that the cheaper made ones, especially the ones that come on Creality machines, will start to break down, especially if you're doing long prints. They'll start to break down slowly at 210, 220, 230. They're supposed to not break down until 245. That's their threshold. But I have noticed that they will. The other thing is that the throat in the hot end, what happens is that gets thermal expansion. So it opens up, and then the tube that's in there now starts to have space between the tube and the inner walls of that throat. So what happens is now that that's all expanded, you'll find that material will start to build up around the tube. And if you've ever tried to take that Bowden tube out of your hot end when it's cold, it's damn near impossible. So what you'll have to do is heat it up to about 250, leave it there for a good few minutes, then come back and try and pull that Bowden tube out, take that hot end off, and either replace it or buy some upgrade parts to replace the throat so that the Bowden tube doesn't go down and meet that hot end. Sausage. Hello, sausage.
I just liked it. I liked it because I can say that, sausage.
My wife likes it. So boy, that just came out all kinds of wrong.
I like sausage.
You may remember me as the guy with the shitbox A8. It's now developed a squealing noise when the part cooler fan turns on. I can get it to stop by toggling the fan off and on. Can this be fixed? Yeah, you can just replace the fan. When the fan starts squealing, it means that the bearings are gone or they're going. And it usually happens on sleeve bearing fans, which you are going to find in 90% of the printers put out there. Even on some of the high-end printers, they're sleeve bearing fans and they're just garbage. I would go with a full ball bearing fan, not a sleeve bearing fan for sure. That will solve your issues. Just replace the fan. Yeah, 3D Print Viking says you need a new fan. You do need a new fan. Chris Travis says, I upgraded my Ender 3 with a Micro Swiss all metal hot end. Nice. Thumbs up and a fist bump for that one. Absolutely love the Micro Swiss. I just actually repaired mine. This machine, let me see if I can find the parts here real quick. Okay, here we go. So if you guys watched my series on upgrading the Cr-10, you'll know that I put on the Pets Fang. Now, this thing failed on me big time. What happened was I set a print up to go and, well, I came home and there was nothing but a giant ball of crap on the 3D printer. So, of course, you can still see there's PLA on the bottom of this piece. There's PLA still here and in the vents here. Yes, I can reprint those. Let me see. I know I've got the original hot end. There we go. You can see there. I don't know how well you guys can see that, but that is totally caked in plastic PLA. This is minor compared to what was there. I kid you not, that ball was about that round. It was like a small, it was probably about the size of a squash ball for any of you guys that play squash. So instead of trying to clean this, I just replaced it. Now, it wasn't due to a clog. It was due to my own error by not making sure that, A, my bed was clean enough to print on it, which I just finally cleaned it today after about 8 months of glue stick being on it. And at the end of the day, this Micro Swiss, all I ended up doing was replacing the block, the nozzle, and the throat. The rest of it's still on there. But I went back to the stock cooling. Why did I go back to the stock cooling? Some guys are going to say, well, this is a better cooling system. I'm not so sure that's true. Having tested this, having tested the Bullseye, both my printers print much better back to the stock cooling. And all these fancy coolers and things that people develop, I think sometimes there's winners out there, but also sometimes there's not winners out there. And you can see here, this one's actually deformed a little bit right here on one of the vents. It's actually drooped down, so that's closing off air as well. So by using the original cooling, I've now got it back on the Cr-10, back to stock, and the only thing that's not stock, of course, is the hot end. And it's working just fine. I'm printing this Baby Yoda right now for Wednesday's episode and using tree supports, and it's going just wonderful.
Paul Kimber says, I clean my bed every print. Maybe you should let him know how often you clean yours.
Cleaning your bed every print, depending on what you're using, is fine. I think it's a good practice to be in. I don't think it's completely necessary. I think if you do print a lot, you're going to find that glue stick will build up. And there was 6 months of glue stick on my glass on my bed. Now, do I recommend that you just keep glue sticking over and over and over again over a 6-month period? No, that's ridiculous. I'm lazy. So I took it upstairs. I gave it a good cleaning today. I put it back on the bed. I put just a little bit of glue stick on for the prints that I'm doing. Now, glue stick will stay sticky usually for about 3 to 4 prints. Been my experience. So this print that's on there now, this will come off, and then it will. I'll start another print right away, and there won't be any real problems. Magic Goo, Dave Tellman. Magic Goo is also a good product to use. I find that Magic Goo though has to be cleaned off every time.
My guest says I don't ever clean my bed.
Mike,
Printer, but I don't have any problems with adhesion either.
you don't. Well, what are you using, Mike? Are you using glass and glue stick? Are you using a different surface? Are you using Build Tack? What are you using? Magic Goo does rock. I do like it. I just not a fan of having to brush it on and then scrape it all off and then brush it on and scrape it all off. I want to print and go, print and go. So that's sort of my deal. So I usually say about every 2 to 3 weeks, clean off your glass. That's a good one. One more question here before I get too far along. Krister Tornblom, I know I've messed that up. He says, hi, many thanks for the membership. I start with a question. Creality Cr-10 S, motherboard 2.0 Creality, and Marlin firmware. Is it possible to decrease the microstepping in the X and Y axis? The reason I will lower the step rate is that I experiment with lead screws, and now the stepper motors stall easy and lost steps. I guess that the step rate is 1/16. It is 1/16 now, and if it's possible, at least 1/8 microsteps. Thanks a lot for the forehand. I don't remember if you can actually change that in firmware. You might be able to change it in the advanced config or config advanced. But if you're stalling those motors, that's coming off of the stepper itself. So I would adjust the voltage on the stepper first, would be my first course of action. Before messing around with firmware, and see how you go there. The 8mm lead screw, or the 8mm lead screw, they have a 2mm pitch on them with an 8mm lead. So they're made for those motors are made for 16 microsteps. They work the best at 16 microsteps. So I really think that it might be your best bet to stay with that. But if you wanted to change them, yes, you could. I clean my PEI with IPA every other print or so. Yeah, that's Chris Travis is saying that. It's actually really good. 3D Print Viking says, I don't need to clean after each time with Magic Goo. I print for ages without cleaning it, actually. That's actually really good. If you can get away with it, I just find it kind of messy and it stinks. I've tried them all. I mean, I've tried sugar water. I've tried, Yes, I have tried maple syrup because I'm Canadian. I've tried the Magic Goo. I've tried the Dust and Print, glue, hairspray, and I keep going back to glue stick. A, it's cheap. It's like $3 for a really big tube that'll last you a long time. B, it cleans up with water really easily. And C, it's no muss, no fuss as far as I'm concerned. Mike S, I don't use anything myself. Was just curious what was going on with the glass where it needed glue in case I ran into it in the future. The reason that I use glue stick is it just gives that extra little hold to the first layer of your print on glass or on mirrors. I use mirrors on my CR10s just because they're much flatter than glasses, and that metallized coating helps the bed to heat more evenly. Elmer's glue sticks works great and they are cheap. Joseph Jolly, I totally agree. Nanopolymer, Lightspeed. Stephen the Lightspeed says nanopolymer is the best. Ben saying he usually gets 10 or so prints from Magic Goo. Dave Tellman, it starts flaking after a while, so water and paper towels. Penguin Life, hello Penguin Life. I don't think I've seen you in here before. Surely you've had a problem with the white filament sometimes with 3D printing. I'm having the same problem with the filament density. Do you know how I can print with the filament? What filament are you using? Whose filament is it? I've never really had a problem. I do know that some whites need a little bit more heat to print, whereas darker colors don't. As you get into that lighter spectrum of color, the pastels, the whites, you are going to have to print a tad hotter, so that might be part of your problem. Hello, David Prock. I think I missed you earlier. Mike S says, I don't have to use anything on glass. I wonder if it's related to my climate.
So the David Prock was, for the best rigidity ever, for the case that holds everything together, use a solid dome with holes on the dome to the house of the motors and its gimbal monitors for linear pulling.
Linear pulling lead screws through. So David Prock says, for the best rigidity ever, for the case that holds everything together, use a solid dome with holes on the dome to house the motors. That's on a gimbal. Motors are linear pulling lead screws through. Okay. I don't have to use anything on glass. Okay, I got that one. If you're changing pitch on lead screws, you may need to slow the Z-axis speed down so things don't bind or stall on the Z-axis. You're absolutely right about that, Sean. I should have mentioned that. Wayne Eversol. Hello, Wayne. I have had best of luck with printers or painter's tape myself. Only bad thing is the texture it leaves on the bottom of the print. Wayne, what other surface do you have? Do you have glass on your bed? I'd be curious to know, because if you do have glass, I would be remiss if I didn't tell you to try and use glue stick on it, and you won't get that texture. And if you do find anything that is left behind on the bottom of your print, you can just simply wash it off with a little bit of water. Gonna try PET G in the future. Any advice, Joe Boxer? Yes. If you're gonna try PET G in the future, first of all, make sure that you're not using the stock hot end on any Creality product. That would be my first advice. But if you have to use it, you're going to be printing PETG up and around 235 to 245. Your bed is going to have to be up at around 80. You are going to find that you're going to have to work on retraction a little bit, because the retraction is going to be a bit of an issue because you will get stringing. It is a plastic that is very prone to stringing, and it is very prone to moisture in the air. Now, there was a video that came out a while ago about different filaments and their hygroscopic properties, and somebody had dumped them in water and pulled them out and printed with them. That's not how hygroscopic formulation works. You can leave them in water all friggin' day long. It absorbs moisture from the air, not physical water. Okay, so totally totally different things. So make sure that when you're not using your PETG that you put it into an airtight bag with the desiccant pack that came with your roll of filament, just to try and keep as much moisture out of it as possible.
Sausage says Mrs. Cleveland needs a microphone.
Mrs. Cleveland doesn't want a microphone. She's told me that many, many times. Yeah, 240 and 80 on the bed. Don't squish. Yeah, the other thing is, Joe, don't squish it too much. If you squish too much, and if you're going to use glass, you have to use an interference layer between the PETG and the glass. So you are going to have to put down glue stick. Otherwise, the PETG will pull up chunks of the glass. So, and I know because I've done it myself. So I think I've got all the questions tonight. Wow. I do have glass plate also, Wayne says. I'll try that, thank you. I found that temps are different between brands, so I run a temp tower every time, Joe Boxer. Chris Travis is saying that to Joe. Chris, you are doing the right thing. Anytime that you get a new roll of filament, if it's a different color from the same manufacturer, do a temp tower, because you're going to be surprised at how different temperatures can be from one color to another, even from the same manufacturer and from material to material. So definitely go ahead and do a temp tower on all your different materials. Hold on to those temp towers and then use them as reference when you go and buy a new roll of that stuff. Sean Gould, do recommend an all metal hot end with PETG? Absolutely. 3D printing llama, vapor, not water. Absolutely, vapor, not water. That's when we're talking about the hygroscopic properties of PETG. I've been printing 3D printing and painting. Our good friend Jerry, he says, I've been printing a lot of PETG with Zaltec on my stock Cr-10 hot end and TTP Pro 230/70. Great prints.
Hobby Howie says, how long have you been doing this?
How long have I been doing this? Hobby, you're going to be quite surprised by my answer. I have been doing this now for 3+ years, yes. When I got into 3D printing, I
had one of those crappy Chinese ones.
Well, first I researched 3D printing. So I knew a lot about the process because I was making props and models at the time. So I thought going to 3D printing would be great because now I could 3D print instead of, kit bashing and doing stuff. I could 3D print this stuff because there was a lot of stuff available even 3+ years ago. But I didn't research my first printer. And my first printer was a Hicktop 3D-P08, not a company I'm a big fan of. I put more money into that printer than the printer was actually worth just to get it to run. So once that printer was up and running, I actually used it to make parts for another printer. And then I built my first printer from scratch, or actually my second printer from scratch from the ground up. And I learned more about 3D printers that way than I did about the kit, my very first kit that I had. And then I built another custom 3D printer. And then, yeah, I built a Prusa was the second one. The first one was a Wilson 2, which was freely available on the internet. Really nice little printer. I still actually have it. I don't use it anymore, but I still have it. I think that at the end of the day, you really want to look at 3D printers when you're buying 3D printers. Really look at the forums, look at don't just look at the reviews of the printer. But for as far as me, I keep diving deeper and deeper down this rabbit hole of 3D printing. And I decided, because when I got into it, there was a lot of guys that were going, look what I made. And I made it on my printer over there with this filament. Hey, have a nice day. But nobody was addressing the problems that people were having with 3D printing. So that's when I decided to start the show, because I had already gone through a lot of the problems, and I continue to find problems that you guys are having. A lot of stuff that you guys are experiencing, especially the new people, I've experienced. So I've been down that road. I feel for you, and I know what kind of frustration you're going through. But at the end of the day, this is still a hobby like any other hobby, and there's a real learning curve to it. And I love what I do, and I keep giving you guys content and the best advice that I can. If I don't know something, I'm going to tell you I don't know. If I can find out for you, if I can go ahead and look it up somewhere, I'm definitely going to go and look it up for you, and maybe we can cover it in a later topic down the road. So we are at 2 minutes before 8, so I want to say thank you to everybody that was here this evening. Got aboard my flight, great show. Tim McCoy's probably coming home now. Chris Travis says, Joe Boxer, it is a tower that you, yes, temperature towers. Joe Boxer, go check out our video on temperature towers. It's called Back to Basics, doing a temperature tower in Cura. I would definitely suggest that you go and check that out. My tongue is getting tied today. And Tim, safe flight home. Look forward to seeing you when you get back. Wayne, that is what I'm in the process of doing. I just got my first 3D printer at Christmas, and it's been a headache. Seems it was used and a lot messed up, but I have it going somewhat now. Wayne, you can always contact me through Messenger on Facebook, and I'd be happy to maybe walk you through some of the issues that you might be having. See if we can't get it tuned up for you a little bit. Chris Travis, the Ender 3 had several support groups in Facebook. Yes. Sausage, I'd really dig it if you would do a series on building up a printer, say a Delta, for instance. Actually, I'm going to be covering Delta in another few months. We have a Delta at work that I'm going to be bringing home for a little while, and I'm going to be learning more about Deltas and how they operate and the kinematics of them, and see if I can't give you guys some more information. And maybe we will build a Delta this year. Who knows? Thank you again to everybody for the super chats. Thank you everybody for showing up tonight. Really, really liked having you guys here and joining us. As I said, we'll be back on Wednesday with our Cura Supports Demystified. So make sure you check that out on Wednesday. It will be coming out Wednesday morning, as we always put out our videos in the morning. And you can submit your questions. Let's go back to that questions one more time. We're probably going to run a little over here tonight, but that's okay. So if you've got questions, please submit them to our email. I'm no longer checking email during the show. So if you submitted questions during tonight's show, I will get a chance to look at them, and they will come up on next week's show. So here you can, there we go. So here you can send your questions to questions@thefirstlayer.com. We will put them into a doc, pardon me, and we will go ahead and answer them next Saturday when we do our show. Thanks, Richard and Mrs. Richard. Sausage says, you are very, very welcome. I hope you guys had a good time tonight. Remember that the super chat was turned on, or it still is turned on. Go ahead, check out all of our other stuff. Check us out on social media. Until next time, my friends, remember that the first layer is always your foundation to a great print. See you next week.